strong. U.S. Defense Secretary Pete
Pick your
says
hero.
the Pentagon...
Or villain. I'm not judging.
I will bring peace to this universe, no matter the cost.
Democrats, you know you've messed up when even Bill Maher has had it with the extremists in your party. This is a man who's marched in lockstep with your party for the last few decades, has virtually supported every policy, and has dedicated his show to basically pushing progressive ideals. Yet now he's saying, I want nothing to do with those extremists, and he's calling out the rhetoric that led to the assassination of Charlie Kirk.
30 seconds before you attack. Get
Has to
ready.
stop too. He went out to dinner. I wouldn't have done that. In Washington, D.C., okay, and people started to gather around him and they were chanting, "You're the Hitler of our time." Okay, first of all, he's not Hitler. Okay, an insult to everybody in the Holocaust to begin with. Second of all, calling somebody Hitler makes it a lot easier to justify things like assassinations. Let's put that away, shall we?
And look, I know that this is something that many of us have been saying for years. I've been saying this repeatedly on this channel. But to hear this sentiment, to hear this message from someone like Bill Maher being spoken to Democrats, I think is going to hopefully make a huge difference and is hopefully signaling a shifting tide here. Now, in case you're not familiar with what he was talking about, President J.D. Vance and I believe Marco Rubio was with them. They all went out to eat, and people started chanting "Free Palestine" and "Trump is the Hitler of our time." Secret Service was there, and they ended up having to clear some of the area, but it really was essentially ready. In case you missed it, this is what happened.
Be proud, my friends. Even the All-Father himself could not have handled the power contained here.
The media has been pushing that narrative ever since 2015 when President Trump came down the golden escalator and announced that he was going to run for president. They've been pushing the idea that he's a dictator, that he's an authoritarian, that he was Hitler if given the opportunity. But it's completely different as we hear this from everyday Americans who are protesting, organizing. Somehow they were able to get into these things. You would have thought that the place would have been swept before President Trump, J.D. Vance, and everyone else. Protesters to be up to and also, I would just like to point out, if you, the protesters I'm talking about, if you the Hitler of our time, would you be criticizing him to his face? Would you literally, like, walking to a restaurant and be calling him say this? I don't think any of us would do that.
I am
we
born
actually
anew.
feared and believed what we're saying here. And so I think that this shows that some of what the Democrats are doing is performative, but unfortunately, there are many crazy people out there who, either because they don't pay attention to the news or don't use critical thinking skills, truly believe this Hitler rhetoric that's being pushed around. So I kudos to Bill Maher for speaking out against this. He actually audience on the fact that silencing someone is the complete antithesis of treason. This is the complete antithesis of one of the key values that we should all begin as Americans. What's going on is basically assemble! It's very clear that they are coming.
Born again! It's going to be kind of a team show because you read an editorial before the week starts, and so
Against the world!
This guy was shot. Anything on our show, on my podcast, I'm glad I took that approach. He was shot under the banner and said, "Prove me wrong," because he wasn't the guy. And too many people think the way to do that is to prove you wrong is to just eliminate wisdom talking altogether. So the people who mocked his death or justified it, I think you're gross, I have no use for you. The people who are saying now we're at war, I have no use for you. So my first question, true or false? I think the real war is not between left or right. It's for the people it's between the people on both sides who want a war and the people who don't.
And look, I believe Bill Maher has a lot of credibility on this. Don't forget, he's one of the few Democrats who actually not only received an invitation, but accepted the invitation to go to the White House, right? Earlier this year, I believe it was Kid Rock actually invited and pleaded with President Trump, hey, invite Bill Maher to the White House. I think it would be great for both of you.
30
Bill Maher
seconds
accepted,
before you attack.
and he
Get
actually
ready.
gave a great show well, not immediately. I think it was like 2 or 3 weeks delayed, but he basically was really surprised. Hey, the President Trump I saw behind closed doors, the man I sat down and ate dinner with, that's not the man I see on TV. Basically, Bill said what a lot of us have realized a long time ago, that yes, President Trump is intelligent and he's hardworking and all of those things, but
The battle starts
at the
in
end of the day,
5,
he's also a showman.
4,
He also has
3,
built
2,
part of his career
1.
on reality television. So
All you need to
there
do is
is sort
capture
of
the
this
mission
dual
area.
persona.
Got it?
But Bill Maher basically just confirmed what we've heard from many people, that hey, President Trump is charismatic, he's very engaged, he's very sharp behind the scenes, and he just does what he needs to in front of the cameras. And so all of that to say, when Bill Maher comes out and says, hey, no, President Trump is not dictator, he's not a dictator, he's not authoritarian, I'm not worried, I don't think you should be worried, I think he has a lot of credibility. Maybe at the top of the video, this is a guy who's essentially marched in lockstep with the Democrat Party for the last 2 decades. So I hope that his message opens eyes on the far left. Of course, though, talking actions are a lot harder. But even then, Bill Maher has actually lived up. He has every right to preach what he's preaching right now because a little bit, but he really has a history, a track record with some completely different people. So this is actually what Ben said in regards to the question I touched on, which is
Nice deep
the
freeze.
actual fight here is between people who want peace and those who don't. It's not the war that's happening.
I'm a help.
I think that's accurate. I knew Charlie for 13 years when he was a kid. He was like an 18-year-old kid when I first met Charlie in the Blue Palm Beach. He was fundraising, running around. I watched him, go into
Against the world.
get married, have a couple of very young kids. And whatever you want Charlie's views, they're relevant.
Keep
The
going.
fact is that what he made his living doing and what he actually did quite well, made himself really good at this, was just going and talking to people on the other side. And that's what he was killed with. He was literally in the middle of answering questions, picked up the microphone. I was shocked already. And we do have a serious problem in this country with people who proper response. Never miss. The show is that of Gen Z, 58% of Gen Z believe that there is no excuse for violence in response to speech, meaning that 42% believe that there is some violence ought to be a response to speech. Which is deeply terrifying. I mean, on a personal level, obviously, I have 24/7 security. I've been 24/7 security for a decade. I've spoken on a lot of college campuses. I never, honest to God, thought that we were going to get to this point. Even the assassination of political figures is not the same thing as just being shot in the throat for the crime of debating issues in the public square. And I thought wrong. I thought that that's not what America is and what it should be about. And we've come to someplace incredibly dark in our nation's history. And, I weep for the country. I weep for the
Most heals here.
And so the audience is breaking the applause there. Again, Bill Maher has built a whole following of people on the left. Now, he does have a lot of independents, and a lot of Republicans even watch him. I've been watching him for a few years. I love his Friday show. I know a lot of people don't like watching people with opposing viewpoints, but I believe he's sincere in what he says, and he's at least been consistent in his own ideology, even if I don't agree with it. But I think the reason I want to point this out is a lot of people are saying, how do we order for I don't have the answer for that, and I'm not going to tell you how you should live your life or what I think you should do, but I can tell you sort of my approach to things, and my approach to things is to basically take a nuanced view of the media and of people with different beliefs. I know that sounds like common sense and that sounds super basic, but think about it. When we talk about the mainstream media, it's easy to just say, well, they're all biased, or oh, they're all liars, or oh, they're all terrible people. But that's an oversimplification. And I think if we actually dig deep down in our hearts and are honest with ourselves, we know that's not true. Yes, the mainstream media is biased, but that doesn't mean every single person who works for them or who works at these institutions is evil. It doesn't mean that they're all like traitors to the country. You know what I'm saying? And so for me, one of the things that I want to do is at least acknowledge the good things people do, and that's why, obviously, that's
right
the theme
heroes
of
could
this
make
video,
all the
acknowledging the
difference.
good that Bill Maher is doing in
I will
his
bring
sphere of
peace to this
influence.
universe,
That's why
no matter
yesterday
the
I
cost.
acknowledged The View. Yes, I think The View is ridiculous. I think the women on The View are ridiculous 99.9% of the time. But when they hit the right note, when it came to their response to Charlie Kirk's assassination, hey, I'm going to give kudos where kudos is due, because they could have pulled an MSNBC or an MS Now. They could have pulled out hateful rhetoric. They could have mocked him in death, like so many Democrats are doing right now. But hey, guess what? These people, they're not. And that doesn't mean
Perfection
that all of a
is
sudden
unattainable,
they're the
but
best
that should
role
not
models
stop
in
us from
society.
trying to
But
achieve
again,
it.
I can acknowledge when someone has done something right. Well, like I said,
We'll be coming in
Charlie
30
Kirk actually
seconds.
did
Stay
appear
strong.
on Bill Maher's podcast. This is just a clip of it that I think you will find fascinating.
Drink?
No, good, thank you.
You don't drink? Or smoke
That
pot?
hasn't changed.
And you're married and super Christian. We're gonna get along great.
No, this is gonna just be perfect.
But can I just ask you? Because I want to find out a lot about you. Because you're obviously a super bright guy, but
The
you
battle starts in
think
5,
that I have the right
4,
to live completely
3,
opposite than you do.
2,
I think you should get as drunk as you can.
And you're that kind of American, right? You're not forcing your opinions as.
I'm not here to say you can't. What do you
No, okay. So you think pot is illegal?
That's a complicated. I would ask the question though, like, do you think since the legalization of marijuana in LA, it's made it a better or worse place? Or just it hasn't changed?
Certainly hasn't changed. I grew up right outside here.
Do you think the quality of life has gone up?
Well, I don't know, but that's not really the relevant question, is it? Even if there is a deleterious effect, there is too many things to do, and we would not use that as a reason to prescribe our basic freedom.
Should people, be able to do drugs
Should people?
outside, like on the street?
No, definitely not on the street.
So there are some limits.
Of course, and maybe up to 5%, as we do with pharmaceutical drugs, But certainly pot is more benign than alcohol. I could give you the stats on that. We all know that. Is it healthy? No. I'm not crazy, but I don't think it's. Well, it's a trade-off. When you're an adult, you have the right to make trade-offs.
Nemours alone again.
Is the essence of life. I'm going to have this piece of cake tonight. I'm going to be a little fatter tomorrow, or I'm not going to do that and feel better tomorrow. And we all make those choices on a daily basis with everything. Yes, have I probably cut off some years of my life, maybe with pot? Who knows? I can only do so because it helped me. It certainly made me richer. It made me better at my job, better at writing, better at a lot of things I like to do. I might be able to rent an apartment in Van Nuys if it wasn't for pot and not for
Who knows how successful you could have been without it?
That's true too. That is true too.
Obviously, that wasn't that long ago, but it feels like a different time. It feels like a different time that we have people
I have risen.
in good faith, conversing and debating. It's not getting nasty. It's not getting personal. Personally, I enjoy stuff like that. Seeing people who
Born again, please, girl!
and are just wrestling with it back and forth. And at the end of the day, they can shake hands and say, hey, you live your life, I live my life, we're both Americans. Why don't we have more of that?
Bro, you're so late, bro. They got the point.
They did report about the writing on the weapon that the gunman used, right? But they basically are ignoring the fact that has anti-fascist and potentially pro-Israeli messages on there. And this is important, but they flat out, they literally said on air, who cares? Who cares what you do?
These quids reek of
I thought that was the whole point of trying to find out someone's motivation for doing something else.
I heard the congressman on there
there saying, oh, we need to tone down the rhetoric. Well, will the rhetoric get toned down? And again, I go back to what was on the board from this kid. That's only coming from one side currently in this debate, and it's on every placard and every poster around the country. And I think it's about are they going to live up to what they say they're going to do with the Nazi and the fascism and the like.
I don't think we know, just to be clear, I mean, just law enforcement people, I don't think we know the meaning of his message. And we know his history.
They tell a child an anti-fascist thing, it says fascist.
Think about his history. I am at your my point, not yours. This is my point, not yours. The point is, who cares? A man is killed. And you have yet to say political violence is bad, period. That's all that people want from the president. That's all. And they're beginning to spin up of the you and this and what. Stop it. Stop it. You're not going to divide. In this case. I think we're looking for it. We're not going to divide. We've got to leave.
First of all, the president and virtually every single Republican leader has said political violence is wrong, period. No excuses. The issue that this has continued to rile people up is because people are celebrating Charlie Kirk's death. We saw students cheering, universities around the around the country. They were filming clips of this, right? They were looking at the footage on their phones and laughing at a man, a father, being shot and blood gushing out of his neck. How to be Namor employees of these major corporations, and by the way, apparently these corporations are beginning to learn their lesson, but that's the reason why people are riled up. It's not because President Trump said or hasn't said something. No, it's because there is a strong contingent in this country, and I hate to say it, and let me be very clear, I don't think it's all Democrats. I don't think it's the majority of Democrats, but there is still a strong contingent of people who are happy about this and are celebrating this. And I hate to say it, want it to be happy. Well, people have had enough, and you're celebrating. Don't be surprised.
Against the world!
We'll get into that. USMC tomorrow, named Gunjo as the members of today's born again! Come together to mourn and build community and, just all that for this time. They said office. But when they walk in, the people this is propaganda, and we're just not going to give it to you.
Thank you. So,
don't give them another inch, or else. Anyone willing to help? They're ahead of us. That's much better.
Better already.
Our aquatic enemies have been eliminated.
You stopped them in their tracks.
They released this early this morning, I believe, and so I think this is a great response. We'll see if the other person ends up getting fired, but apparently Office Max, Office Depot does not. I had no idea that they were the same. Now apparently, I thought they used to be two separate stores, but apparently they don't want
you
the
can't
next
expect
button.
them all.
People are beginning to wake up. It's been a long time coming, but hey, better late than never. As always, though, all of that is just my analysis and commentary. That is what's going on in the world of politics from my point of view, and I would love to hear from you. So there's been a huge outpouring of support for Charlie Kirk, not just here in America, but around the globe. From London to South Korea to Australia, marches are happening everywhere. And then we see what's happening here with Bill Maher speaking out against this, the leftist.
The right heroes could make all the difference.
I will bring peace to this universe, no matter the cost.
South Park is a show we all know rarely censors itself, but in the wake of a shocking act of real-life violence, one episode of the show is being pulled. On September 10th, conservative political activist and media personality Charlie Kirk was fatally shot during an event at Utah Valley University. The shooting sparked reactions from all across the political spectrum and brought some attention to a recent South Park episode that satirized Charlie Kirk. The season 27 episode Got a Nut, the second episode of the show's current season, originally aired on August 6th of this year. Like much of the current season, it lampoons a current political moment in America from multiple angles. The main plot of the episode involves school counselor Mr. Mackey joining ICE after losing his job due to federal budget cuts. Meanwhile, Cartman starts his own podcast and debates liberals on college campuses, which is an obvious satirical poke at Kirk, who rose to fame for doing just that. The illusion isn't subtle. He even dons the same hairstyle as Kirk. The parody is one of many aimed at administration figures and allies in this latest season, all of which have caused various levels of controversy. While such controversy has long been integral to the show's success, circumstances have put the episode in an unquestionably fraught position. After the shooting occurred, it didn't take long for Comedy Central to be pressured to pull the episode from the air, with a rerun scheduled during the show's off week. The company ultimately chose to pull the episode from its scheduled time slot. But what did Kirk think about his treatment by South Park? After the episode aired, Kirk appeared on Fox News and called it a badge of honor to be mocked on the show, which he grew up watching. Praising the accuracy of the parody, he said,
"Not only was I honored, they got the little sip of the water correctly, they got the hairdo, it was the little details are perfect."
He also went on to speak positively about the episode on his YouTube channel, saying,
"I think the whole thing is awesome and hilarious."
At this point, it's unclear how Kirk's death and the pulling of Got a Nut will affect Trey Parker and Matt Stone's approach to the remainder of season 27, as longtime champions of free speech who have gone out of their way to battle censorship at every turn throughout their careers. It's very possible they will find a way to address this whole thing in future episodes. What tone they strike and how far they might go with their commentary is anyone's guess. Some people have gone so far as to say that Parker and Stone shouldn't get a chance to do so. One ex-user wrote, "Hate to say it because I was a South Park fan from day one, but that show should now be cancelled." Multiple others chimed in to say that they believe this episode is going to be the one that finally does them in. Comedy Central did not immediately come forward to make an official statement about their decision to pull the episode off the air, and neither did Parker and Stone. While extraordinary circumstances led to Got a Nut being pulled from the air, this isn't the first time someone has opted to censor South Park in the wake of public outrage. It took a while for South Park to fully find its rhythm, but the season 3 opener, Rainforest, the third time is definitely a charm for the series. This anti-environmentalist episode was inspired by Parker's real-life experience in Costa Rica. On a recommendation from 3 of the Red Hot Chili Peppers, Trey and his girlfriend at the time booked a trip to the rainforest. Probably a bad move, considering Parker's hatred of snakes. In the South Park audio commentary, Parker described the country as, quote, hot and dirty and smelly, expressing frustration with Flea for recommending the trip.
I hate the rainforest. Go right ahead and plow down this whole thing. That's swell.
Once he came back stateside, he penned a less than flattering episode about the country that finds the South Park kids on a small trip to San Jose. Seeing as the country is depicted as an impoverished nation overrun by insects, snakes, and revolutionaries, it's little wonder that it didn't go over well in Costa Rica, with the country's tourism minister Carlos Benavides denouncing it in 2007. In 2011, MTV Latin America decided to stop airing the original episode, eventually releasing a censored version with dubbed by Studio Center in 2012. The finale episode of the three-part Meteor Shower trilogy, Jubilee is one of Trey and Matt's favorite in the series. It was also the final of 3 episodes the creators still had to make after putting together the full-length film. South Park, bigger, longer, uncut. They had more than a touch of vacationitis during its production. Feeling pretty great about their work on the movie, they decided to make the episode as bonkers as possible and just get it over with. The episode revolves around Kyle and Kenny's camping trip with the Juice Girls on the night of a big meteor shower. Between Kenny's crash course in Judaism and the Tron-inspired vision of a macaroni pictured crazed Moses, the episode spends plenty of time goofing around with Jewish traditions. Likely owing to concerns about how it would be received, the episode, which first aired in 1999, was not originally dubbed in Hungarian. It was finally released in Hungary on Cool TV in 2005 and became available for sale in the country around the same time. In Hungarian, the episode title translates to Addicts of Religion. In 2001, illusionist David Blaine was at peak popularity, and that made him a prime target for South Park parody. Super Best Friend stepped up to the challenge by imagining a world where Blaine heads up a Scientology-inspired cult called Blaintology, using the art of illusion to lure in acolytes to his magic camp. Impressed by Blaine's magic, Kyle, Stan, Kenny, Carmen, and Butters sign up, only to find themselves shaved bald and trapped in a suicide cult.
I thought you were Kyle. I'm Stan. You're Stan? Where's Kenny? Who are you? I'm Kyle.
You're safe now.
Guess who I am, you guys?
With everyone else completely brainwashed, it's up to Stan to save the day with the help of Jesus and his super best friends. A Justice League-style team that consists of Jesus, Krishna, Buddha, Muhammad, Lao Tzu, Moses, Joseph Smith, and the Aquaman-inspired Seaman. The episode is brimming with potentially offensive content, but it was the episode's depiction of the Prophet Muhammad that would get it banned years after first airing, amid a rise in threats from extremist Muslims. After one such extremist executed Dutch filmmaker Theon van Gogh in 2004, networks were far less inclined to risk airing images of Muhammad. South Park Studios removed the episode from its available content, and is one of only a few episodes that can't be found on streaming videos. Not even the South Park movie was safe from the banhammer. South Park, bigger, longer, and uncut, takes Stan, Kyle, Cartman, and Kenny to the big screen, where an R-rated Terrence and Phillip movie results in war kicking off between the United States and Canada. Meanwhile, Paramore's Saddam Hussein and Satan hatch a plot for global domination. Bigger, longer, and uncut heavily explores the topic of censorship, something that was on Trey and Matt's mind, considering that their series had already been the target of ban attempts several times in its first 2 seasons. This time it was a depiction of Saddam that sparked anger from, well, Saddam. Unlike the show's other cartoonish figures, Hussein's character uses a photographic cutout of his real head, and is characterized as a masochist in an abusive relationship with the devil himself. He even gets his own musical number. The real Hussein did not find the joke funny, and the film was banned in Iraq upon its release. After Hussein's arrest, Stone said he had it on the authority that Marines had forced the dictator to watch the film on repeat before his execution. Just as the 90s Beanie Baby craze was fizzling out, the Pokemon explosion began taking over more kiosks and playgrounds across America. Many pearl-clutching parents looked on in helpless horror as kids everywhere became obsessed with the Japanese pocket monsters. Naturally, it was only a matter of time before a reactionary wave of satanic panic rose up against supposedly evil creatures with names like Jigglypuff and Geodude. Groups like the Child Care Action Project railed against the franchise for its violence, magic, mind control, and female characters in crop tops. So of course, the South Park kids had to get in on the fun in the 1999 episode, Jim Pokemon. In a clear parody of the adorable anime juggernaut, South Park Elementary is overtaken by a popular series filled with subliminal messaging.
This doesn't make sense. Are those stupid things supposed to be animals or robots or what?
I don't know, but I suddenly kind of want to own them all.
Pokemon products and attention Pokemon camp, but it's all secretly a super soldier brainwashing vehicle to train kids for a second attack on Pearl Harbor. Besides the obviously taboo kamikaze joke, the episode also seems to take aim at Emperor Hirohito Showa and relies on a running gag about comparing Japanese and Caucasian genitals. Unsurprisingly, Sony felt the episode wouldn't go over well with Japanese audiences, and it was ultimately cut from Japan's Wow Wow Network schedule and the Japanese DVD release. Easily one of the most shocking episodes from the show's early seasons, Cartman Joins Nambla is one of a handful of South Park episodes conveniently left off the lineup by Italian free-to-air station Italia 1 during the show's original Italian syndication in 2003. Italian fans had to wait until 2006 before they got the chance to catch it. Although it's hard to pinpoint which offense tipped the scales against it, the episode is full of gasp-worthy gags centered around the North American Man-Boy Love Association. When Cartman sets out on a quest to obtain more mature friends, he turns to the internet, where he immediately finds plenty of grown men eager to meet up with young boys. When his new friends keep getting arrested, Dr. Mephisto suggests he join Nambla, the North American Marlon Brando lookalikes. There's some confusion when his plans intersect with the more infamous group of the same acronym. And then there's the episode's B-plot, which revolves around Kenny's extensive efforts to stop his parents from having another child through repeated attempts to induce an abortion. Both storylines are a lot to stomach, and it's not hard to see why Italia 1 felt that audiences weren't quite ready for it. The two-part storyline covered in the episodes Do the Handicapped Go to Hell and Probably was also controversial enough to get cut from Italia 1. The story serves as a follow-up to bigger, longer, and uncut by revisiting Satan's relationship with Saddam Hussein. The trouble starts when Father Maxi frightens a bejesus out of South Park's Gentile population with a good old-fashioned hellfire and brimstone sermon. Scared straight, Cartman, Kenny, and Stan decide to get religious, but soon begin to ask some inconvenient questions. Specifically, they want to know whether or not their Jewish and disabled friends will go to hell for not confessing their sins. Things go completely off the rails when the children become disillusioned after uncovering Maxi's hypocrisy. Cartman starts a fundamentalist cult, and Satan's love triangle with Saddam and Chris turns homicidal. Amid all of the story's twists and turns, it's also revealed that of all the world's religions, only Mormons get into the good place. While it's hard to say why Italia 1 left the two-parter off their playlist until 2006, the images of a priest having sex with a married woman and the deeply critical look at organized religion probably had something to do with it. The ladder to heaven revolves around Kyle, Cartman, and Stan's efforts to reach their late friend Kenny in heaven, along with the media frenzy that ensues when South Park's adults learn of their efforts. Unaware that the boys' act is not one of childhood innocence, but a misplaced attempt to get their hands on a winning all-you-can-grab candy prize ticket Kenny was hanging onto, the entire nation starts rooting for them, and country star Alan Jackson even writes an emotional song. As always happens in South Park, things escalate to the extreme. The whole thing turns into a space race with Japan. Cartman becomes possessed after accidentally consuming Kenny's ashes, and Saddam Hussein builds a WMD factory in heaven.
This is a chocolate chip factory.
The 2002 episode takes aim at Alan Jackson's use of the 9/11 terrorist attacks to sell records, which Stone and Parker felt was an exploitative cash grab. Whether it was due to concerns over 9/11 sensitivity or the depiction of the Japanese government, the episode ended up being one of a handful of South Park episodes not to air during the show's first run in Japan. Although the depiction of Muhammad and Super Best Friends went largely unnoticed when it originally aired, most media outlets and the studios were doing everything they could to avoid offending an entire religion by 2006. As a network that typically didn't shy away from controversy, Comedy Central was still struggling to work out where South Park could draw a boundary with future depictions of the Prophet when Trey and Matt decided to take a crack at the discourse in the two-episode story arc, Cartoon Wars.
If you hate a TV show, all you have to do is get an episode pulled. Pretty soon the show is compromised and it goes off the air.
Part analysis of the Muhammad controversy, part brutal savaging of Family Guy, Cartoon Wars begins with a typical South Parkian panic over the news that the Seth MacFarlane series intends to show a depiction of Muhammad in an upcoming episode. MacFarlane took it better than expected, calling the episode funny and accurate in a Rolling Stone interview, although he probably wasn't talking about all the stuff with the manatees. Regardless, the episode's content left the network feeling squeamish, and the version that made it to air included a title card explaining the scene rather than actually displaying an image of Muhammad. When HBO took over Comedy Central's catalog, they decided to completely dodge the issue by leaving the two-parter off the streaming app entirely, along with 3 other controversial South Park episodes. For the 200th episode of South Park, Trey and Matt decided to pull out all the stops by bringing back every famous figure the show had ripped on over the years, and the Prophet Muhammad was teased to be one of them. United under Tom Cruise, the celebrities who have been victimized by South Park all arrive in town to file a class action lawsuit against its residents. But there's a catch. Believing Muhammad to be immune from mockery and ridicule, Tom Cruise and company concoct a deal. If the good people of South Park will hand the Prophet over so they can take his powers, they will agree to drop the lawsuit. As with Cartoon Wars, the two-part storyline spent the first episode teasing Muhammad's appearance, leaving fans to wonder if they would follow through in 201. And just like Cartoon Wars, the episode that aired was a censored version of what Trey and Matt had intended. When a foiled car bomb attempt was uncovered in Times Square soon after the episode's original airing, some speculated a link to South Park. Although one was never found, 200 and 201 would end up completely banned across most digital streaming sites, including Hulu, Netflix, and Max. Hurricane Katrina would mark one of the most devastating storms to hit the United States. By the time it was over, the Category 5 hurricane had taken 1,400 lives and flooded 80% of New Orleans, laying waste to the city's infrastructure and leaving hundreds of thousands of people displaced and unsheltered. Airing less than 2 months after these tragic events, a South Park episode 2 days before the day after tomorrow parodies the poor government, cultural, and media responses that arose in Katrina's wake. The drama begins when Carmen and Stan crash a boat into the world's largest beaver dam, causing the town of Beaverton to flood. Rather than focus on helping its residents, the world obsesses over where to lay blame. And when scientists land on global warming, mass hysteria ensues. The episode originally aired on Japanese television, but was later left out of Japan's Fox network syndication schedule. There doesn't seem to be a consensus on why the episode was left out, but some have speculated it had to do with concerns over sensitivity to those victimized by Katrina and similar disasters.
Hello? Everybody? Like to be rescued, please?
No matter what the circumstances surrounding them are, spinal cord injuries are always tragic. However, the fact that Christopher Reeve rose to fame portraying Superman made the 1995 horse riding accident that left him paralyzed from the neck down that much more shocking. Shocking enough that even Trey and Matt felt he was off limits as fodder for South Park humor. But all that changed after they watched the 2003 Larry King interview with Reeve, which they saw as a sign that Reeve was losing his rhythm. Prepare to turn this observation into an episode that sees the actor traveling to South Park to deliver a speech in support of stem cells as medicine. Jimmy becomes so jealous that he and Timmy start a club specifically for people disabled from birth called the Crips, unaware that there's another group with the same name. While the South Park kids spiral into a gang war, Reeve goes around sucking the stem cells out of fetuses. Despite this disturbing content, the episode was originally slated to air in Japan, along with the rest of the season 7 run. However, Reeve died shortly before it was broadcast, so the Japanese network decided not to air it out of respect. Since no religion is off limits for South Park, it was only a matter of time before the show's creators put Catholicism in their crosshairs. That's exactly what happened in the season 9 episode Bloody Mary, which finds Randy Marsh transformed into a full-fledged hypochondriac after a stint in a 12-step program convinces him that he's afflicted by the disease of alcoholism.
I have to admit that I'm powerless to this terrible disease. Your powers are mine!
Serve me well.
Disappear!
When rumors of a miraculous bleeding Virgin Mary statue begin to circulate, Randy becomes convinced she holds the key to his cure. Unfortunately, the episode's release coincided with the Catholic holy day, the Feast of the Immaculate Conception. With its papal parody and statue of the Virgin Mary on her period, the episode sufficiently got quite a few high-ranking Catholics in the President of the U.S. Bishops William Skeelstad felt compelled to pen an irate letter to Viacom, and after the Catholic League for Religious and Civil Rights got involved, the episode was left out of the end of season reruns in the US. In Australia, Melbourne Archbishop Dennis Hart's demand for the episode's censorship was initially met with dismissal, but its release was ultimately postponed until August 2006. The season 13 South Park episode Pinewood Derby finds Randy Marsh stealing a superconductor magnet from the Large Hadron Collider to give his son a winning edge in the statewide Pinewood Derby. When it hits warp speed, they get caught up in the aftermath of an intergalactic bank heist that ends with Randy driving leaders around the world using a bunch of stolen space cash. The many world leaders impersonated in the episode include German Chancellor Angela Merkel, Italian PM Silvio Berlusconi, and French President Nicolas Sarkozy, among among others. And a minor controversy arose surrounding the portrayal of John Howard as Australia's Prime Minister, given that Kevin Rudd had been in office for well over a year at that point. There was also the fact that Vladimir Putin was misidentified as Russia's president rather than its Prime Minister. However, it was the episode's portrayal of Mexican President Felipe Calderon that got the episode cut south of the border. The episode depicts Calderon as leading from a rather dumpy, non-presidential looking office and wisely spending the nation's money on water parks. The network airing South Park at the time was MTV, who originally listed the episode in their television lineup. In light of Calderon's portrayal, the network's execs felt it was a good idea to ask permission before airing, causing them to switch it out for a replay of the episode The Ring unannounced and leaving many Mexican South Park fans disappointed.
Quantum match.
Down to 30 seconds.
We're in this together.
Alright, then I'm gonna steal your whole town. You got that $5 billion.
Welcome to Watch Mojo. And today, we're looking at celebrities who responded to being parodied and possibly roasted on South Park.
I went to pay a visit to the youngsters at their school in South Park to talk to them about Thanksgiving.
Number 50, Elon Musk. In season 18, Elon Musk's new Tesla struggles to compete with Timmy's anti-car service. Musk ultimately acquires Timmy's business for $2.3 billion. Only a fraction of what he'd later pay for Twitter.
After selling the HandyCar rights to Elon Musk, Timmy has raised $2.3 billion for summer camp.
Speaking of which, Musk wrote on the app that he'd later rebrand, kinda trippy seeing myself on at South Park. I've watched the show ever since the Jay vs. SE shorts. Brian Boitano. Musk returned to South Park in season 20, telling Cartman and Heidi about SpaceX. Instead of being portrayed by Matt Stone again, Musk lent his own voice this time.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the tour. I'm Elon Musk. Are we gonna have some fun today?
Oh, great, a stupid tour guide.
The South Park creators have bonded with Musk in real life. Trey Parker played Dungeons & Dragons with Musk, while Stone attended his SNL after party. That doesn't mean Musk is off limits now, however. Number 49, Tina Yothers. Early South Park seasons often referenced actors from classic sitcoms who hadn't been in the limelight for a while. Tina Yothers of Family Ties is one example. In the show's first Halloween episode, the actress who played Jennifer Keaton is enlisted to judge a costume contest.
Children, this year we have a celebrity judge, the star of Family Ties, Miss Tina Yothers.
She picks Wendy's Chewbacca costume, much to the dismay of Kyle, who assumed that Yothers was dead. Stone later encountered Yothers at one of her shows, although he initially didn't recognize her. It was the first time he met a celebrity that South Park had made fun of.
What? But she looks just like everybody else. Up yours, Tina Yothers.
This naturally made Stone anxious, although Yothers turned out to be a South Park fan. She even played a soundbite from the episode before performing with her band. Number 48, Leonard Maltin. Season 1's Mecca Streisand parodies several celebrities, some more positive than others. Film critic and historian Leonard Maltin got off easy. In fact, he's portrayed as one of the episode's heroes.
You've seen Barbara Streisand recently.
Barbara Streisand? You mean like the Barbara Streisand?
Have you seen her?
No, not Chris Jensen.
He tracks down Shep to help him stop possibly the greatest threat that South Park would ever face. The director and star of Dental. Maltin told the South Park creators that his kids appreciated the send-up. Years later, on the Tuned In with Jim Cummings podcast, Maltin recalled how someone once asked if he gave permission to be featured in South Park. His answer,
Same permission Barbara Streisand.
Cummings felt that being caricatured was when Maltin had made it. Indeed, it's not every day you transform into Ultraman and fight Funny Girl. Number 47, Stevie Nicks. In an episode dedicated to ridiculing Osama bin Laden, South Park also found room for Stevie Nicks, a singer whom Stone can't stand.
Hey guys, it's Stevie Nicks. Oh, wow!
On an accidental trip to Afghanistan, the boys get stuck with the goats, which everyone else mistakes for Nicks. It wouldn't be the last time that South Park referenced the Fleetwood Mac member. A decade later, in You're Getting Old, Nicks is referenced multiple times, with their song Landslide closing out the episode. approved the song's usage, despite previously being portrayed as a farm animal. Nix took the go jab in good humor, calling it hysterical. She considers herself a South Park fan, adding, "You have to roll with the punches here. And those guys are so clever." Number 46, PewDiePie. A handful of celebrities have portrayed themselves on South Park. YouTuber PewDiePie is a unique case, popping up in live action.
Call of Duty Advanced Warfare.
Maximum Pulse! Kyle finds it baffling that Ike would rather watch PewDiePie commentate on video games rather than play one. This mirrors how the South Park creators feel about Let's Play. Although Parker wrote of PewDiePie, I choose to see it as the birth of a new art form, and I don't think anyone should underestimate its most powerful artist. Parker and Stone used PewDiePie's Stick of Truth videos as feedback while making The Fractured But Whole. In a YouTube video, PewDiePie talked about how South Park reached out to him. PewDiePie naturally accepted the invitation to appear in 2 episodes, shooting his footage while visiting Japan.
They needed me to do the lines while I was in Japan, so I had to bring my setup to Japan, and it looked pretty ridiculous.
Number 45, Billy Mays III. In 2009, the deaths of numerous celebrities made headlines. Among them was famed pitchman Billy Mays. In South Park, Mays doesn't just haunt Ike like some of the other celebrity ghosts. He continues to sell products from the
God of Thunder!
Mega Scrub Cleanser! Are you tired of kitchen counters getting those nasty stains? Don't just rub them, mega scrub them!
Billy Mays, no!
While it's hard to say how Mays would have responded to the parody, his son found it tasteful. Billy Mays III later said on social media he heard his late father would be featured on South Park shortly before the episode aired. Knowing how South Park often bashes celebrities, he feared the worst. When Mays III watched the episode, though, he not only laughed, but also got surprisingly emotional.
I'm proud that it exists. Shout out to South Park.
Plus, his dad got to yell at Patrick Swayze. That's pretty cool. Number 44, Paul Watson. Looking to save the whales and dolphins, Stan teams up with Paul Watson's crew. Stan finds that the Whale Wars team isn't as badass as they appear on TV, writing Watson off as a giant fraud.
I thought you guys were pirates in a war. I'm a pirate in a war. Pirates don't worry about the law. You guys said you were badasses.
When Watson gets harpooned, Stan replaces it as Sea Shepherd's captain, even after Watson is taken out of the picture. The episode relentlessly mocks it, although it's about as savage as South Park gets. The real Watson considered it a win for the whales.
Reality show is doing just fine. Whale Wars. Here's the show.
Watson wrote, "Being ridiculed, lampooned, and insulted on South Park is a declaration of the war that Sea Shepherd and Whale Wars are affected and have cracked through to the other side of the media culture curtain. Like Kenny, Watson brushed off being killed off." Number 43, Andrew Tate. Wanting to show Stan and Tolkien how real men spend spring break, Randy throws a rager that attracts a sex trafficker.
Look, I'm just trying to combat the messages that the liberal left is putting out to young men about their male instincts being toxic.
Although the character is named Alonzo Fineschi, he's clearly modeled after Andrew Tate. From his bald head to his toxic masculinity. The episode aired a few months after Romanian authorities raided the influencer's property and arrested him. While under house arrest, Tate wrote online, "When I will be proven innocent, I look forward to help create the greatest South Park episode of all time." Although Tate seemed to take the episode as a compliment, Fineschi isn't depicted in the most flattering light. His presence brings Randy nothing but trouble, which is often the case for those who get mixed up with Tate.
It's okay, Randy, we're back.
I'm sorry. I cut your trip short.
It's okay, Randy. You made it longer than last spring break.
Number 42, Lizzo. Obesity may be at a turning point thanks to semaglutide. Although the American healthcare system continues to burden people in need. Insurance denies Cartman his breakthrough drug, but the doctor offers an alternative. Lizzo.
Please, there has to be something you can do. Us against the world!
All right. I'm gonna write you a prescription for Lizzo.
Lizzo?
She's a really good singer who talks about body positivity and just being happy with the way you look.
He suggests that Cartman listened to the singer's songs which promote positivity. Sharon also goes on Lizzo, despite some side effects like pooping out your ears. When Lizzo heard about the episode, she described it as her worst fear. Filming a reaction video, Lizzo's mouth dropped, but in a good way. Lizzo felt the parody captured what she preaches, not giving a crap about what others think.
Oh, Lizzo, bitch.
So even if the parody had leaned more negatively, Lizzo probably wouldn't have let it get under her skin. Number 41, David Blaine. Super Best Friends would be removed from circulation due to its depiction of Muhammad, although the episode focuses more on magician David Blaine.
I've been traveling from town to town for quite a while. I started quite a following, mostly because of my levitation trick.
Don't mind me.
What?
Famous for his death-defying stunts, Blaine is depicted as a cult leader. Regarding South Park and other parodies of himself, Blaine said, "I loved all of it. The one thing about the South Park episode he didn't get was why they always had him say "flop" at the end of sentences." Matt Stone later explained to Blaine that he had a high school friend who possessed this weird quirk.
Your magic is old and outdated. You're welcome.
So he worked it into the episode. According to the South Park creators, people seriously started asking Blaine for his Greentology book, although they made that religion up. Number 40, George Clooney. George Clooney was among the first high-profile stars to champion South Park, sharing the spirit of Christmas joy. Friendship, but Clooney voiced Sparky the dog in season 1 and the Doctor in South Park Bigger, Longer, and Uncut.
Son, I have some bad news. He accidentally replaced the partner to take the tape about 3 seconds ago.
In season 10's Smug Alerts, Clooney's Oscar acceptance speech is depicted as so self-congratulatory that it contributes to a perfect storm. The episode aired only a few years after Clooney got the puppet treatment in Team America.
We've all done action films. If anyone tries to get in our way, we'll show them just how tough us actors really are.
Nevertheless, Clooney considers Stone and Parker friends, not taking offense to the South Park episode. As for Team America, Clooney said, "I would have been offended if I wasn't in it." Number 39, Conan O'Brien. In the South Park movie, Terrence and Phillip drop by late night with Conan O'Brien, where they get arrested.
Make you nervous to be in America? There are a lot of organizations here that want you arrested for destroying children.
Oh, they'd have to find us first.
You're right. Now!
Terrence and Phillip, Mothers Against Canada is placing you under citizen's arrest.
Regretful for selling out his fellow comedians, O'Brien jumps out the window. Naturally, this was the clip that Stone and Parker brought when they appeared on O'Brien's show in 1999. According to Parker, the MPAA didn't sign off on them sharing this clip, although they managed to get a bootleg. O'Brien wasn't blindsided as some of his interns saw the film before him. While O'Brien laughed, he noted that his studio was on the 6th floor, not the 1st. He also questioned his caricature's voice, which Brett Spiner, aka Data from Star Trek, provided. Apparently, Spiner's initial impression was meaner than what ended up in the movie.
I like that better.
Number 38, Steven Spielberg. In Season 6's Free Hat, the boys take aim at Steven Spielberg and George Lucas for making unnecessary changes to their classic films.
All we're doing is trying to reach a new audience with our movies. As the makers of dreams, we like to speak for the children.
While Stone and Parker aren't sure how Lucas reacted, they did receive a letter from Spielberg. According to Stone, Spielberg wrote that he felt as if he had finally arrived now, that he was a villain on South Park. Although Spielberg complimented their sharp, witty sense of humor, the guys found the letter backhanded, sensing that he might have been at least a little pissed off. Parker also can't help but wonder if Spielberg never drastically altered Raiders of the Lost Ark because of this episode. What we want to know is how Spielberg feels about the other episode with Indiana Jones.
Why would Spielberg and Lucas do this? Come on, let's go!
Number 37, Jared Fogle. South Park totally called society turning on Jared Fogle, albeit not for the reasons this season 6 episode implied.
The reason I was able to lose so much weight so quickly is was that I got AIDS.
The former Subway spokesman's reputation is ruined over a misunderstanding that, in retrospect, feels more like a red flag, not long after it aired. Vogel said that he usually associated South Park with tasteless humor, yet he found it very flattering that they dedicated an entire episode to him saying, "You know, you've made it when shows like South Park start parodying you." It wouldn't be the last time that South Park made fun of Jared. Once Vogel's sex tourism scandal hit the fan, he returned to South Park with a far more devious demeanor. Let's just say this parody was the least of his worries. Number 36, Seth MacFarlane. While Seth MacFarlane has never appeared on South Park, the Griffins have. Stone and Parker made it clear that they aren't fans of MacFarlane's creation, arguing that the jokes don't connect to the story.
They are inherent to a story. These situational and emotional jokes based on what is relevant and has a point, not just one random interchangeable joke after another. What are you talking about? I don't understand.
In the Family Guy episode McStrip, there was almost a scene where a character named Trey assaults someone named Matt in a car. MacFarlane revealed that they decided to cut the joke, feeling it was a low blow. Supposedly, Britney Spears asked to be on Family Guy in retaliation for her South Park episode, although MacFarlane felt that would do more harm than good. While MacFarlane has mostly taken the high road, he did tell Howard Stern that South Park can go to hell. We think he was joking. Number 35, John Edward. South Park has roasted numerous celebrities over the decades. So-called psychic John Edward stands out as what Parker and Stone consider the biggest douche in the universe. In the episode, Edward continually denies this accusation. The real Edward has come to embrace the title, even bringing South Park up to his events. In Edward's eyes, having a whole episode about him is a sign that he's made a difference. It was free advertising. Edward argued that the episode has brought more attention to his gifts, introducing him to a new generation. There's no denying that a lot of people heard about Edward for the first time through South Park.
What that does is that brings more people to me who would never know who I am. Then they learn about the subject matter.
The show has forever memorialized him, for better or worse. Number 34, Bill Donahue. Season 11's Easter special depicts the Catholic League president as a megalomaniac who imprisons the Pope, declares himself the church's new leader, and orders Jesus' execution before being killed himself.
Who did you give the rabbit to?
My dear sweet Susan.
Search the area. The boy could not have gotten far.
Based on how Donahue reacted, the parody might not have been too far off. Donahue has a still from the episode of his caricature dressed in the Pope's attire. Recounting the episode, Donahue described the Pope as a wimp, so he took over the church to give it some guts. Donahue was more offended by a season 22 episode that depicted priests as predators.
That's not what's going on. Your local priest was never here, actually.
Yeah, he was. I played with him.
Oh, you did?
He gave a bizarre and homophobic response, arguing that most of the predators were gay. Donahue thus concluded the cartoon victim characters should have been depicted as adolescents, not kids. Number 33, Kim Kardashian. Kim Kardashian has been parodied multiple times on South Park, although her reactions have differed. In season 14, Kim dies along with the rest of the Kardashian clan.
Our nation is still reeling from the tragic death of the Kardashians.
Kim K wrote, "We were all dying when we saw this clip from South Park. Literally. LOL." Courtney and Chloe also had a good sense of humor about it. While Kim was honored to be featured in this episode, season 17's The Hobbits was another story. Wendy argues that without Photoshop, Kardashian looks like a hobbit. A source who spoke to Hollywood Life claimed that Kim was living what the guys from South Park did.
All the Hobbit ever wanted was to be beautiful. And even though she was short, fat, and hairy, this little Hobbit dreamed that one day she could be pretty like Beyonce.
So a bloody death is fine, but a Bilbo Baggins comparison was too far? That is a very Kardashian mindset. Number 32, Isaac Hayes III. Chef was more than a character. He was an extension of Isaac Hayes, voicing his animated alter ego after the show targeted Scientology, despite ending on salty terms. Kyle concludes that Chef isn't to blame.
We shouldn't be mad at Chef for leaving us. We should be mad at that fruity little club for scrambling his brains.
The club that brainwashed him. According to Hayes' son, Kyle was right. In recent years, Isaac Hayes III revealed that his father was recovering from a stroke when the episode re-aired. Hayes lost the ability to speak, so the church spoke for him. Hayes' son stated, "My dad loved Matt and Trey. He loved that character. He loved the show." The legendary singer died in 2008, 2 years after his stroke. If Hayes were alive today, then his son believes that he'd still be voicing Chef.
Hello there, children.
Hey, Chef.
Number 31, James Cameron.
In season 16, South Park decided to tackle the perceived dwindling of human decency. Much of the episode poked fun at Mama June and Honey Boo Boo, but also included a humorous bit featuring Titanic director James Cameron.
Cameron, you don't have to do this. Why don't you just go back to your house in Malibu? Go work on another movie. I have to do this. I have to try and raise it. The bar isn't something that's actually lower.
By the eye
Cameron's
of
real-life
Agamotto.
interest in deep-sea exploration was depicted as a means to literally raise the bar on human morality. Between his obsession with his mission and the sea shanty his crew belted out, it's an entertaining poke at the Terminator director's oceanic hobby.
His name is James Cameron, the bravest pioneer. No budget too steep, no seat too deep. Who's that? It's James Cameron.
During a Reddit AMA, he was asked about the episode and responded only with, "It's funny. It's like they were actually on the expedition, except I didn't actually make the crew sing a song about me."
Number 30, Ed Sheeran.
Although not a direct parody of Sheeran himself, he certainly had a reaction to its release. During Season 9's Ginger Kids episode, Cartman does a presentation about red-haired children.
We've all seen them on the playground, at the store, walking on the streets. They creep us out and make us feel sick to our stomachs. I'm talking, of course, about ginger kids.
Eric proceeds to describe them as disgusting creatures who have no souls and cannot survive in sunlight. While asleep, Kyle and Stan turn Cartman into a ginger, hoping for him to see the realities of his hate speech.
Wow, Cartman, you look different.
I
Yes,
will
well,
bring
it's interesting
peace
you
to
should
this
point that out,
universe,
Kyle.
no matter
According
the
to
cost.
Sheeran, despite having been mocked for his red lock.
I will leave this universe a better place than it
They'll
was
be coming in 30
before I
seconds.
was created.
Stay strong.
It's nice to have another genuine force.
The
for
Lord of the
good on
Rings,
our
The Rings
side.
of Power
My
is one of the
soul is
most
not as pure
divisive
as
shows
most
on
may
streaming,
believe.
and 1
There's
year ago,
darkness
the
inside
second
us.
season of the show was released to mixed reviews. While many would argue
You're
the second
wise
season
beyond
was
your
a
many
marginal
years,
improvement over the first season, most would also argue the same
battle
issues that
starts in
plagued
5,
Season 1 still
4,
plague Season
3,
2. When you have
2,
just one season of a disappointing show, you can speculate about the multitude of reasons why the show struggled. But once you have multiple seasons and each season makes the same mistakes, then you can formulate concrete reasons for what is going wrong. In order to understand the true issues plaguing the Rings of Power, you need to go back to the origins of the show. What decisions made in 2017 have had a direct impact on the show all the way through its second season? Well, let's travel back in time roughly 8 years and look at the production of the Rings of Power. In July of 2017, after a lawsuit was settled between Warner Brothers and the Tolkien estate, both sides mended fences and began offering the rights to its television service. The initial asking price from the Tolkien estate was a whopping $200 million. Many streaming services made it pitch to the estate for the rights to the TV show. HBO supposedly pitched a darker remake of the Lord of the Rings films. This was quickly rejected. Netflix pitched a series of shows following major characters in the movie. fantasies and said shows would cross over with each other, kind of like the Defender shows from Marvel. The estate also hated this idea. Eventually, Amazon came to the table, not offering any specific idea for a show, instead offering a lot of money. You see, Jeff Bezos is a massive Lord of the Rings fan. This was not an opportunity he could pass on. Also, and maybe more importantly, Bezos had a mandate for Amazon. In 2017, the fantasy story that ruled the world was Game of Thrones. This massive epic that followed dozens of characters all over the fictional world. Bezos wanted to create his own show comparable to Game of Thrones for Amazon. He wanted his own fantasy epic that would span multiple seasons and follow dozens of storylines. So again, with the rights to a Lord of the Rings TV show going on sale, Bezos saw it as a match made in heaven. In November of 2017, Amazon successfully acquired the television rights to the Lord of the Rings TV show for $250 million, $50 million more than the initial asking price. Bezos was going to get his money. This motivation behind Bezos is critical to understanding the direction the Rings of Power will go down. After acquiring the rights to the show, Bezos did not shy away from throwing money at the project. Right off the bat, before a single line of a script was written, Bezos greenlit multiple seasons of the show and gave it a budget that would exceed $1 billion, making it without question the most expensive TV show of all time. In the summer of 2018, discussions were had about what the show would be about. Amazon supposedly met with over 30 potential writers. Many of these ideas centered around prequel shows surrounding the characters from the movies, such as Aragorn and Gandalf. But Amazon decided to go with a pitch Their pitch was to adapt the appendices from the Lord of the Rings books, most specifically the major events of the Second Age. This included the rise of Sauron, the fall of Numenor, the last alliance of men and elves, and of course the forging of the Rings of Power. Pretty much everything that was in the prologue of the Fellowship of the Ring. This was Bezos' dream idea. This was an idea that could be turned into a fantasy epic. So in July of 2019, Kane and McKay were officially announced to be the showrunners for the series. A few months later, in November, the series was officially titled The Lord of the Rings, The Rings of Power. When it came time to write the show, Kane and McKay came across three problems. Yes, they wanted their show to span multiple seasons and have dozens of main characters, but the Second Age takes place over thousands of years. Kane and McKay were concerned that they would be repeatedly killing off main human characters, and therefore audiences would struggle to get invested in more series. How can Rings of Power be the next Game of Thrones when new characters are being cycled through the show every season? So they came up with the decision that everyone is now familiar with, the decision to condense the Second Age into just a few years. When you ask any Lord of the Rings fans what their biggest issue is with the Rings of Power, they'll often say the disrespect of the source material. That's a fair thing to point out. I'm more interested in the why. Why did Kane and McKay make such a strong change? I don't think it was because of hubris like a lot of adaptations these days. I don't think these two thought they could do better than Tolkien or simply didn't care about staying faithful. At the end of the day, the Tolkien estate did approve this change. They were okay with condensing the Second Age. Everything stems back to what Bezos initially wanted. He wanted a fantasy epic akin to Game of Thrones, and condensing the Second Age was the easiest way to do that. After watching 2 seasons of the show and studying what went on behind the scenes, I believe this motivation has led to most of the problems with the Rings of Power. This obsession with dozens of characters and multiple different storylines has consistently been the problem for 2 seasons of the show. The Rings of Power Season 1 debuted on September 1st, 2022, and ran for 8 episodes. As we all know, it led to some rather critical reviews. The season would score an 84% on Rotten Tomatoes, along with a 38% audience score. On IMDb, the season would average a score of 7.33 out of 10. In my review of Season 1, which has become one of my most popular videos, I go into depth about the many issues with the many storylines of the season. Even with said frustrations, I was hopeful the writers could learn from their mistakes for the second season. They even went out of their way to say Season 2 would focus more on the lore and the stories people have been waiting for, specifically mentioning the storyline of Sauron disguising himself as Anatar and manipulating Celebrimbor into making the Rings of Power. So would Season 2 focus mostly on the important stories and ignore all the side stories? No, it won't. Season 2 would premiere 2 years after Season 1 on August 2024, and it would also run for 8 episodes. Just like with Season 1, the issues with Season 2 are clear. There are too many plot lines and too many characters. Each season of the show is roughly 8 hours, so it's at least nowhere near as short as, say, the Star Wars shows on Disney+. The first season of Rings of Power had 4 distinct plot lines: Galadriel and Halbrand, Elrond and Durin, Arondir and Bronwyn, and Nori and the Stranger. Each one of these plot lines comes along with maybe a dozen or more characters. When you have so many characters and so many plot lines, you're taking away proper development from other storylines. Let's do the math. Let's say hypothetically each one of these 4 storylines got the same screen time. I know some of these arcs intermingle and whatnot, but again, for the sake of this argument, let's just say each arc had roughly 2 hours of screen time. 2 hours for 4 arcs is an 8-hour season. If I were to remove the Harfoot storyline from Season 1, the storyline that doesn't connect the rest of the show at all, that means you now have 8 hours to develop 3 storylines. Instead of 2 hours for each plot point beforehand, you now have 2 hours and 30 minutes for each plot. That's a 33% increase for each arc. Not only do you have more time to devote to the characters of each of those arcs, but you also have more budget to devote to each of the storylines. Something that's going to be a big topic later on. So when you have so many storylines, which Season 2 has even more of, it doesn't matter how good they all are. You're going to somewhat dilute the others, and that's not good. So, what are these major storylines? I would say there are 5 major storylines, and we're going to break down each one. We're going to look at what worked and what didn't. I'm going to structure the rest of this video by going through these storylines from what I consider to be the worst ones to the best ones. So let's begin with what I think is the worst storyline of the season, and that's the Harfoot storyline. I'm not a genius to say that the biggest issue with this story is how isolated it is from the rest of the show. Throughout 2 seasons of Rings of Power, the only connection this plotline has had to the rest of the series is when other characters saw the stranger crashing down from the sky. That's literally it. If you removed every single scene with the Harfoot, the stranger, or some of the villains, none of the other arcs throughout the entire season would be effective. But simply being isolated isn't wrong. Audiences are not stupid. They can understand when something is wasting their time, and they can also be quite impatient, rightfully so. When you're a Lord of the Rings fan and you tune in to watch a show called The Rings of Power, what do you think you want to see out of the show? This is not a trick question. You want to see the creation of the Rings of Power. Shocker. Characters like Sauron, Galadriel, Elrond, Drimbor, Gil-galad, these are all characters and storylines that are directly related to the creation of the Rings of Power. You may not like how these storylines played out, but they are at least still the ones you're the most invested in. When you have storylines that are so far removed from the main arc of the show, it's incredibly easy to lose interest. When you're watching a sports game on TV, why do you hop on your phone every time the ads come up? Because you're there to watch the game, not watch an ad. It's a bit of an extreme example, but I think you get my point. Did anyone here watch that Halo TV show that got canceled by Paramount Plus? It wasn't very good, but that show had a very similar issue. When you're watching a show about Halo, you want to see what's going on with Master Chief. While a majority of the show does follow Master Chief, maybe a third of the show followed this random other girl and what she was up to on some random other planet. It wasn't until the end of the 2nd season where we finally learned why her arc was relevant. This is a big problem. Now, of course, it would be silly for me to suggest that anytime the show has a storyline that deviates from the main characters, that must mean it's bad. Of course, you can have arcs that deviate from the main storyline. But if you're going to have these kinds of storylines, you need to do one really important thing. You need to convey to the audience as early as possible why the storyline is relevant. This way, when audiences are watching these isolated stories, they understand why time is being devoted to these arcs. Let's look at Game of Thrones, for example. And by the way, this is the exact same example I used in my first Rings of Power video. The main storyline for the early seasons of the show is the War for the Iron Throne. These seasons follow said war and all the different factions of the war. But while this is all happening, we have a storyline with Daenerys in a completely different continent. This storyline doesn't have anything to do with what was called the War of the Five Kings. So based on what I've been talking about so far, you'd think this storyline must be a waste of time, right? Wrong. The reason audiences are still invested in what Daenerys was up to is because we knew right away why this storyline was important. Daenerys and her brother before her have a claim to the Iron Throne. They are trying to build an army so they can attack Westeros and take the Iron Throne themselves. Daenerys also has 3 dragons, something which is a big deal in the world of Westeros. So whenever the show cuts away from the main story to focus on her, we understand that it's not a waste of time. Daenerys is coming to Westeros, and it's going to be a big deal. The moral of the story here is when you have an isolated storyline, let the audience know why they should be invested. With the Rings of Power and this storyline with the Harfoots, the only reason the audience could be invested is because they assume the wizard will have a role to play. That is not enough. Of course, when anything is being shown in a movie or show, we assume it will be important. Why else would they be showing it? So asking to be invested because there's simply a wizard here is not enough. In Season 2, we learn at the end that the wizard is Gandalf. Cool. How will this be relevant to the story? We don't know. We just assume that Gandalf will have a role to play. So after the whole second season, we're basically at the same point we were at the end of the first season. We're watching this character because we assume they're going to be important. Now, it's even worse with the Hobbit. In the first season, you may ask, why are we wasting time devoted to the Harfoots? The only answer I could think of was because the Lord of the Rings movies had hobbits, so this show wants hobbits too. That's worse because we're not even assuming they will be relevant to the story. Now, Season 2 has a bit more clarity. We now know they are being shown because it's going to tie into the creation of the Shire. It is heavily implied that this is the direction the story is taking. Cool! Does this have anything to do with the Rings of Power? Not that I can think of. Writers just want to show the creation of the Shire just cause they like hobbits. This is bad storytelling. This is why almost all viewers were least invested in this storyline. So yeah, that's the biggest problem. Don't waste the audience's time and don't leave them in the dark about why what they're watching is wrong. Now let's hypothetically say this storyline was super relevant. How are the characters? Are they engaging? Do they have any arcs? Do you understand why they're doing what they're doing? With Nori, I would actually say she's a somewhat well-developed character. In Season 1, we learn the reason she wants to help a stranger is because she's interested in the outside world. She's tired of living her life just within the scope of the Harfoots, and she wants to see more. This is why she was willing to tag along with the stranger at the end of the season. Come Season 2, do we learn anything new about her? No. Does she have any new arcs this season? No. If anything, the second season appears to be a bit more reductive with her character. She left the Harfoots at the end of the first season because she wanted to see more of the world. Come Season 2, she meets another clan of Harfoots, pretty convenient, and by the end of the season, she wants to help them go back to find the third clan of Harfoots. I guess since she helped out with the fire where they needed to go, she's ready to go back. But I don't find this to be a compelling arc for her. What's the lesson here? What did she learn? All she did was accomplish her goal, and now she has a new one. This lack of a deep personal flaw or motivation is another major reason the storyline was uninteresting. And the same could be said for the stranger. His story is just about remembering what he forgot and following a map. They try to have this where he teaches to help his friends and following his destiny, but then it turns out helping his friends was his destiny, and that led him where he needed to go. I mean, it's better than nothing, but there was never any struggle here. Was he battling all season whether he should follow his destiny or help Nori? Did he ever suffer from any consequences for not choosing to help his friends? There's no arc here. No human struggle, just all plot with the exception of one decision he made. Besides some moments of levity and some moments that reminded me of the original films, this storyline was easily the weakest of the season. The lack of direction is frustrating, the isolated nature of it is frustrating, and the lack of deep human issues for these characters was the most frustrating. For the second season in a row, the Harfoot storyline refuses to connect to any other storyline in any meaningful way. As a result, it feels like a waste of time and kills the momentum of the season. It gives off the storyline that's not much better, and that would be like a large risk. Now, unlike the Harfoot storyline, it's still overall pretty isolated. The main characters here are, of course, Theo, Isildur, and Rondir. Theo is grieving the loss of his mother, Rondir is also grieving the loss of Bronwyn, and Isildur falls in love with a girl. The Harfoots are still present here. Is anything going on here tie into the creation of the Rings of Power? Not really. If anything, this entire storyline was a subplot of the Numenor storyline, because that's what it's going to tie into. Now, it should be noted that the departure of Bronwyn was unexpected by the producers. Apparently, the actress didn't want to return to the series, so the writers decided to just kill her off screen. I get the unfortunate situation the writers were put in, but fair or not, it leaves this storyline in Season 2 in a bit of an odd place. Season 1 showed her becoming more of a leader, and now she's just gone and her characters are grieving her. It retroactively makes Season 1 a bit worse, because now it feels like our time was wasted. Also, it's a bit strange that they had no problem recasting Adar, but they didn't want to recast Bronwyn. Either way, the result of this is that the story lacks direction. I like Arondir. He's a pretty cool dude. His fight scenes are awesome, and I like that he's one of the more stoic characters in the show. But let's be real, there's no story or character arc explored through him. We find out early on that he just wants to get to Adar because he blames Adar for Bronwyn's death. Makes sense, but that doesn't end up going anywhere. He fights Adar for a few seconds, gets stabbed, and then in the next episode he's fine. He doesn't even get that moment of killing Adar. Sauron does. So what was the point here? It really feels like they gave Arondir all this screen time out of obligation. Like they gave him all that screen time in Season 1, they developed him nicely, but now in Season 2, they don't really have anything for him to do, so they just gave him a small story of saving Theo and a small arc about one of the lad. Seeing the trees and the messages with that subplot was neat, but again, the big question needs to be asked. What was the point? Arondir didn't change. I'm glad the season ended with him around mid-rail, because I think Arondir really works best as a supporting character. He's pretty much like Matt was a supporting character, and he was a badass. In The Hobbit, they tried to give him more to do, and it backfired heavily. Theo is another character that's in a bit of a peculiar situation, because he was largely an extension of his mother's story. So now that she's gone, there's not much for him to do either. When you first see him this season, you see that he's grieving the loss of his mother by bottling up all his emotions. This is totally realistic for a kid his age to do, so I like it. Then he has some conversations with Isildur, gets captured by the Ents, and then is saved by Arondir. Earlier this season, he kind of blamed Arondir for his mother's death, and here he really appreciates that Arondir came back for him and forgives him. So Theo did change for sure, but is that in the cards? No. If anything, it just felt like the storytellers wanted to introduce the Ents, which was a cool part of the season, but it made pointless. Now, of course, the true reason this entire subplot exists is because of Isildur. Isildur in this show really suffers from prequel syndrome. We've seen Lord of the Rings. We know how important Isildur is. We know that one of his descendants is Aragorn. So
I am ready to put on a show!
Just from watching this show alone, what makes Isildur more important than most of the other characters in the show? I would argue Lisa is a more important character than Isildur is. But again, because we know Isildur has to become important at the end of the story, writers decide to give him screen time to get out of it. It's a similar situation to what I just spoke about with The Stranger. With The Stranger, we're watching his scenes because we assume that he will be important later on down the road. With Isildur, we know he's important because of our knowledge of where the story is going. The writers decided to give him a lot more screen time for this season. And his development wasn't bad, per se. The scenes were alright. I even thought his dynamic with Estrid was pretty cute. It was generic, but it was cute. The storyline just suffers from the same issues as The Stranger. We know this character is going to be important, but they aren't important right now. Nothing here with Isildur and Estrid or even Arondir has anything to do with the creation of the Rings of Power. And that's why so many people say this storyline draws the pacing of the seasons to a halt. It may not do it as bad as the Harfoot storyline, but it still does it regardless. When the series is all said and done, I think we'll look back at this little storyline and say the only reason it existed was to show who Isildur will fall in love with. Since we know that Aragorn is a descendant of Isildur, that means Isildur needs to find a girl to have kids with. It all makes sense. But after putting some thought into it, I really think you could scrap this entire series. With the Harfoots, even though it's completely isolated, since it's going to matter at some point, we can't just get rid of it. But in regards to this storyline, with just a few rewrites, you can remove it entirely. For Arondir, you can just have him show up with Galadriel after the season and you wouldn't miss a thing. When Elrond, Galadriel, and the other elves are on their way to Region, have there be an action scene and Arondir just shows up to say, Galadriel can ask what he's doing here and he can say, Adar killed the woman I love, I want to kill him now. Alright, you're all caught up. If the storyline with Theo being mad at Arondir is really important, you can have that in Season 3. Say in Season 2, Arondir abandons Theo to get revenge on Adar. So when Arondir goes back to Theo can be pissed that the only parental figure he has left abandoned him. Arondir realizes mistake is when Theo goes missing, Arondir makes an effort to go find and save him. And would you look at that? Arondir would have an arc. So that's how you could have rewrote Arondir's story. With Theo, frankly, you just don't need him here. He's not important enough of a character to take away screen time from the actual important character. I know there's some theories out there that Theo may become one of the next two, but for the time being, I'm assuming he's just some ordinary. Since Theo is still at the start here, just have him return as a character in Season 3. Game of Thrones realized that in Season 5 there was nothing for Bran to do. Armed and dangerous! They just cut him out of Season 5 and brought him back in Season 6. They could have easily done something similar with Theo. So that's how you write Theo out in season. Now what about Isildur? Well, since Isildur ends the season going back to Numenor, why not just have him go back to Numenor at the end of Season 1? It's really the fact that him going missing and just have him return home with everyone else. If they could do that, he would somehow sneak on board one of those Numenorian ships, and when she arrives, she gets him to clear up. But Isildur feels bad for her and does try to save her, and they fall in love. Pretty easy rewrite there. Who said Isildur had to fall in love with a girl in Middle-earth? It seems like in hindsight, the only reason the writers had Isildur presumed dead was so Aarion can be pissed at her dad and turn against him. But is Aarion that important to the fall of Numenor where you need to drastically change Isildur's story? I don't think so. So with those changes to Arondir, Theo, and Isildur, you could probably save an hour of screen time for the season, an hour that could have been devoted elsewhere. So even though I do kinda like these characters, I acknowledge that they weren't used that efficiently. Given that the show's biggest problem is that there are too many plot lines and too many characters, condensing some of these stories into other stories, or straight up removing some of it would serve the wider goals of the series a lot more. This storyline is another example of a storyline that probably didn't need to exist, and only exists because it expands the scope of the show. That is not good writing. Let's move on to the next storyline, and that would be the Numenor storyline. So this storyline is where we start to see some cool things start to emerge. The whole point of this storyline was to show the rise of Pharazôn. In the first season, we saw him planting seeds of distrust in Miriel, and in this season, he uses that to take over as King of Numenor. Before I talk about the development of the characters and all that, let's talk about a big issue I've seen a lot of people discuss, and that's the scale of these cities. This is a much bigger problem when we get to the Region part of the story, but I thought I'd introduce it here. So throughout the Numenor scene, we often get these wide shots of how big the city is, and frankly, these shots are absolutely gorgeous. It really does highlight the scale of the city. A city, mind you, that is supposed to be known for how big and great it is. There are no issues here. The issues stem from the actual scenes of our story. Almost all these scenes here in Fanforce time. We are shown the throne room over and over again, and we get a lot of the same shots of the rooms and locations within the city. What happens here is that it makes the city feel much smaller than it really is. We never see people actually travel from location to location. It's just people in rooms doing stuff. I often think a lot about Minas Tirith from the movies. I always think back to that scene where Gandalf arrives at Minas Tirith, and they just show him riding through the city for almost a whole minute before he reaches the top. This minute or so doesn't advance the plot or the characters, but it is excellent in terms of providing scale to the city that's supposed to be massive. Rings of Power Season 1 actually did a better job of this than Season 2. The shots where all the Numenorians getting to the boats and travel to Middle-earth was excellent. In Season 2, there aren't any scenes that actually mobilize you on such a large scale, but still, there are very few times where the show can highlight how big this city was. It reminds me of The Acolyte. In both The Acolyte and the Star Wars sequels, we get shots of the Jedi Temple and how big they are. Not only are we shown a variety of different things within the temple, but we have just as many shots of people walking all throughout the temple. Born again! The only location of the entire temple that is shown multiple times. In The Acolyte, we are shown maybe 4 or 5 different rooms throughout the whole series, and that's it. That's all we see of the temple. We've never seen the prequels, and only the Acolyte. If you think that the temple was actually really small, but once you've seen it, going back to the rooms, I understand that there's only so much the writers can do. Some may say, but Goldman, Rings of Power is the most expensive TV show ever. Not having enough of a budget should be an excuse, and that's totally fair. It doesn't really matter how big the budget is, because they need to spend much of that budget on all the variety of different plot lines and locations. As I said before, it all stems back to the cardinal issue of this show, the overabundance of plot lines. In discussing the previous 2 sections, I often spoke about cutting storylines to devote more time to other storylines. And while I stand by that, part of it is also so more money can be given to these storylines. Money that can be spent on a shot of someone riding through the streets of Numenor showing the hundreds or even thousands of people that live there. Money that could be spent on creating more outfits for the dozens of other extras they could add to the scenes. Or money that could be spent simply making these sets bigger. I know in the grand scheme of things this isn't a big issue, but when you market the show as being some massive epic, you also kind of want it to feel like a massive epic, not like an expensive TV show. I think a lot back to House of the Dragon or Game of Thrones. In the city of King's Landing, how many different parts of King's Landing are we shown? We are shown dozens of different locations throughout the city, and we are probably shown just as many locations inside the Red Keep. We don't get anything close to that in Rings of Power. Now let's move on from this and talk about the characters. As I said before, the whole part of this story was showing Pharazôn's rise to power. I'm gonna be fair to the writers here. I don't think I've ever seen a coup like this work before in a movie or a show. When they're showing scenes where characters are manipulating other characters,
Yes, Phase 5 is about something. No, it's not what you think. Hi,
I
Kevin
will
Feige.
leave this
It's me,
universe
Nando.
a better
Usually
30
he
seconds
secretly
before
writes
you
all the
attack.
Malware
Get
and
ready.
the DC ones now that they're good. I know you want me to do that thing that I did last time a phase ended, where I go through the phase and try to figure out what the phase was actually about. And of course, this is not some desperate attempt to make it seem like the phases are more than just a collection of movies and shows that happen to come out in the world. And now, this is an exercise in unraveling the mysteries of what we all just saw. Because even if they didn't know it at the time, all the
battle
movies and
starts
shows
in
in Phase 5
5,
did have some
4,
things in common.
3,
And I want to tell you.
2,
But real quick, in
1.
case you forgot, because it's been a few
All you need
years,
to do is
Phase
capture the
5
mission area.
started with
Got it?
Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania, then Guardians of the
much
Galaxy
life in
Volume
this
3,
place.
The Marvels,
Let's
Deadpool
fight
and
to
Wolverine,
keep it that way.
Captain America: Brave New World, and Thunderbolts Asterisk on the film side. And then on the TV side, it went Secret Invasion, Loki Season 2, What If Seasons 2 and 3, Echo, Agatha All Along, Your Friendly Neighborhood Spider-Man, Daredevil Born-Again Season 1, and Iron Man Season 1. And I know you may be confused, my cat Mortimer is on my lap. Say hello, Mortimer.
Looks like the mission area is yours to capture now.
Apparently, Your Friendly Neighborhood Spider-Man usually is on this list of Phase 5 projects, but actually 97 is not, even as a book editor, and I'm going to and the book does, well, no, I'm going to talk about Star 97, because it makes sense. You were safe now, my friend. We'll talk about the 5 things that I think Phase 5 was about.
Mission area
The last
is
one
yours.
is the one that I actually think Phase 5 is the most fun. We'll get to that later. I am going to start with the first one, and to understand that, we need to go all the way back to 2023. Because the most significant moment of Phase 5 is not found in the MCU at all. March 25th, 2023 was 5 weeks after the release of the first film in Phase 5. Quantumania. Jonathan Majors was arrested on allegations of domestic abuse. I'm not going to get into the minutiae of the trial since it isn't relevant to this discussion and it's also too complicated. I feel better already. Suffice it to say, it did not look good. And on December 18th of the same year, the Cosmos found guilty of reckless assault and third degree and harassment. And the very day, Marvel cut. And that meant a choice needed to be made. Make a character was set to be the big bad of the first, which spanned Phases 4, 5, and 6. This is something new, but the major result was Kang. After all, Facebook did a lot of work setting up multi-person.
Keep capturing the mission area. Keep going.
Some people say Multiverse of Madness or What If. The character family, just like the version of the film. Like there's an actor sometimes. I feel better already. Benedict Cumberbatch played the version of Doctor Strange over the day before, and besides the palette swap and the top knot, they more or less look the same. Sometimes the variant was just a different kind of type. The 616 Spider-Man from Tom Holland. And they make him great characters to play together. Not like older versions of Tom Holland. Tobey Maguire looking guy, and Andrew Garfield looking guy. We are in this together. Did not need to look as the person we know and love. Other could simply recast. In fact, probably
I am ready to put on a show.
History of remakes. Just have literally any other black actor show up. Technically, could be always be wild. Places the right guy. No, constantly. T'Challa memes that literally any protagonist similar to Enzo, Old Man Ringo, Carlos Esposito, or Will Smith, or whoever can just show up and say, I'm Kang, and if Ant-Man or Loki says he looks different, Spider-Man keeps going solution, there's another problem. And no, I'm not talking about the rumors that majors could play Kang. I remember hearing that, but who knows if it was real. Probably not. The bigger problem is the simpler one.
Lord, I get it!
Not that great. Turned to 46 and splitting up our main cast members. Of course, the Modok was well. In fact, we're one of the 5 most reviews with major performances.
Don't mess with the amazing Spider-Man!
Sure, and like Killmonger really connect
You
with
have my
audiences.
thanks.
Sometimes you just want a Hollywood champ chewing up the scenery like Blanchett's Hella or Russell's Ego. But the one thing people loved about Kang was gone. Cut the character off. It's the character that is not working, and you can sub in and move on. Especially since they really out this role that will always be connected.
Judge, jury,
felt defined for the fact that something had changed. Where there once was a connection to the larger narrative, there was nothing. Loki Season 2 ended with Loki and friends just sort of being done with Kang, even though they had set him up as the big bad problem of the multiverse, and specifically, the reason having multiple universes would lead to a disaster. They got him. Not a big deal. Just one throwaway line in the finale. Deadpool and Wolverine releases the next year, and reports confirmed that things were different. It certainly seemed like the plot was heavily
30 seconds before you attack.
any mention
Get
of Kang.
ready.
Everything in the TVA, Deadpool's motivation for recruiting a Wolverine, it was all different. And because of that, even though it took place in the same location as Loki, it felt disconnected. Loki's mission and Paradox's mission didn't gel. Now this gets explained in the finale of Deadpool Wolverine by 2015, saying that Paradox had gone rogue, but it still didn't feel. Why was Paradox recruiting realities at all? Why was anybody doing that? The TVA just didn't do that anymore. I thought, in a world where Loki Season 2 doesn't end the way it does,
All you need to do is
but
capture the
Loki
mission
Season 2
area.
had a very definitive ending. And what was the anchor being anyway? Why wasn't that ever referenced in either season of Loki? It's apparently the reason universes die, or in What If, or in Multiverse of Madness. No one has ever used that phrase. Why? Because the anchor being and Paradox felt like rewrite that because the original version sends or history same goes for Raging Wolf. In the post-credit scene, we are it doesn't say who specific, or why, or when. Just the most terrifying almost like in a different version of the movie, the tease would be more directly referencing and you instead excited a vague short return of the Fox X-Men was eventually a surprise movie. That seems like a very recent scene.
Born again!
I am ready to put on a show!
Plot seemed like it all along, and in reality, so much phase 5 is pivot. What does this say about the MCU? Well, you look at the last half empty. This is a studio.
I'll get you next time.
The one feel better already. The entire saga strategy shift. Partially because of the actor, but also partially because people weren't connecting with the character. The movie can report. The Marvel scrambled to reset and the process created a
You captured more than half of the mission area. Keep going.
And the audience members knew this wasn't a game-changing message. Difficult but smart decisions. First of all, some of which ended up sticking.
Destiny awaits.
When a big character just wasn't hitting with audiences and a lack of enthusiasm threatened to sink the entire saga, they can pivot. and make changes that sure aren't imperceptible, but don't stop the finished product from being fan favorites.
The area's almost
Loki
yours.
Season 2 was a huge success.
Control
Deadpool and Wolverine made $1.3 billion. Sure, Doomsday is in a good spot, but imagine how much bigger Avengers 5 would be with Marvel heals you. Other studios might turns. More or less. We are in this together. Most disastrously, their decision to reshoot Justice League into a generic mass media like Cosmos heals you. Sony is notorious for changing its bump or Sony Pictures universe of Marvel characters. Like that time they tried to jumpstart their Avengers by having quantum magic. And those units are embarrassed. Marvel seems to do some assistance, please. It goes steering the superhero franchise away from the action. Sure, Cosmos heals you through, but so Phase 5 mainly being the pivot phase. Although it doesn't fully tell that story. To be sure, Deadpool and Wolverine reworked its plot to erase the but that was Secret Invasion. Because Phase 5's first series was heavily magic. And listen, for obvious reasons, studios like this I feel better we don't really know how much Secret Invasion is shot. Rumors took 4 months.
Keep writing until we have a winner.
Jeffrey Reed shared some work with Cosmos Field and on the reshoot.
Born again!
And this led to Falcon and Soldier were each around $25 million an episode. But why was Secret Invasion basically reshot
Magic
from scratch?
is not to
Some
be
theorize
owned,
it had something
but
to
to
do
be
with
felt,
the series' original similarities to the war in Ukraine, but it could also just be that the first version
Their
wasn't
team's
very good.
capture
We
progress
don't
is
know.
past the
We probably
halfway
never
point.
will. But we know there were
I am ready to put on a show!
Phase 5 was called Phase 5, the reshoot phase. Rumors have it that Echo also basically means shot again rumored to have been removed. I keep saying rumored because we just don't know how much was added or removed because Disney will never want to broadcast that information. But in this case, it makes sense because so much of Echo felt like it was missing something. Especially her interactions with Bonnie, played by Deborah Jacobs, which were set up as one of the major emotional conflicts of the series and never felt like they got a proper resolution. The Marvels, which ended up being Marvel's only true bomb, not even increasing its production budget, apparently reshot for a month. According to Variety, the reshoots were designed to quote, bring
By the eye of Agamotto!
Getting rid of some evil subplot, adding more that's the Daredevil show. That's a big part of what I like. But some Daredevil stuff too. Charlie Cox convinced this fight. Even John Bernthal was apparently unhappy with the portrayal. Insisted that they needed to rework the villains from the series. To its credit, Disney made changes that resulted in a show people enjoyed. They added back popular supporting characters, put Daredevil in the suit quicker, and made Born Again feel more like its Netflix predecessor. In total, this meant they at least added an episode in the beginning that acted as a bridge between the Netflix version of the show and the Disney version, and added a couple of finale episodes that gave major roles to Punisher and Bullseye. And of course, there was the final boss of reshoots, Captain America Brave New World. Entire significant Marvel characters like Diamondback and Amadeus Cho were reshot out of the movie. Big changes were made to the tone of the film, taking it from campy action comedy to pseudo spy thriller action comedy. Basically, they made it less silly. And it is unclear how much these reshoots cost, but rumors say it was a lot. Apparently, Giancarlo Esposito running around with action shoot. And maybe you see a pattern. Many of the weakest Phase 5 projects got hit with the reshoot hammer, and that led to movies and series that were all over the place. Many felt like tonal mishmashes. Others featured some of Marvel's least polished.
All you need to do is capture the mission area.
A ton of money taking things that weren't working and turning them into things that still really weren't working. Maybe they were working more. It's difficult to prove the negative here. Was the version of Echo that we got really that bad, or would it look great compared to the original version? Was the first version of Brave New World genuinely too poignant for audiences? It's possible. Marvel, Daredevil, Brave New World, what was once a part of their working together, rewriting the movies, something that didn't result in Iron Man and audiences were starting to see it. And they're circling this together, so Marvel's making too much. I think as long as it's good, like in Phase 4, it can work.
I am ready to put on a show!
Helping with your soldier, Loki's the what is and they were theatrical release Marvel Studios movies like Black Widow, Shang-Chi and the Rings, and Eternals, all releasing in 2021. Spider-Man No Way Home, also releasing in 2021.
The Amazing Spider-Man! Born again!
And those projects levels have arrived. Not even and obviously you are safe now. Second chance was because they didn't fix any one. But fans like me, Marvel was able to maintain a high level of quality. It didn't matter how many things were released. But as things started getting messy, the cracks started to form. Reshoots went from being a regular process to a liability. So for number 1, we've got pivot/reshoot things. Number 2, I want to talk about a specific thing that came up a couple times.
Healing
This deserves
feel better already.
Dominated public discourse over the last few years. It would be expected that they would make it into the MCU. It's not like they've never been talking to Marvel projects. Phase 5 felt different. They expected the phases of production and creative. So Iron Man, it's not surprising that Riri Williams want to build her own version of Jarvis on Friday. Apparently, we more or less need you to make an Iron Man. We are in this together. Working so the narrative was Riri and he wants to make a new AI using her neural network as a template, which is something you can apparently do again. But then she ends up falling asleep and dreaming about her dead friend Natalie, which turns the version
Keep going!
for a second that it is the real Natalie. Clearly it is not. Regardless of who stands on the eye, this Natalie is very clear.
Behold the god of thunder!
Incomplete makes sense. The show is about Riri getting the chaos from best friend.
Born again! Tremble before
It feels like how
don't mess with the Amazing Spider-Man!
I am ready to put on a show!
The hood and his in Hood's case, revenge on the father that abandoned him and then losing his newfound family, the crime gods. We never got a name for that group. And Ezekiel was running from his past, which ended up finding its way back to surface and back into his life. And the people in Riri's life found the AI-Natalie relationship, especially Natalie's brother, Xavier. When he finds out about AI Natalie, he is shocked and disgusted. Why would Riri do this? She needs to work through her trauma in a healthy way. And you're like, yeah. Xavier's working alongside AI Natalie. He's the one who needed to be more open-minded. I think that's interesting, because Riri losing the AI Natalie is treated like losing real Natalie again. It's so tragic that Riri makes a deal with Mephisto, expecting to bring her AI back. And it is certainly possible that in a second season, Ironheart will have wrestled with the ethics of using AI to bring someone back from the dead, especially since it was the direct result of the death. But we will more than likely never get a season 2 of Ironheart. And even if we did, it seems like the AI ship has sailed. It's no longer about the ethics of creating an AI Natalie, but literally bringing her back from the dead. My bet it's the second season of Ironheart would end with Riri letting Natalie go back to heaven or whatever and restoring the AI Natalie. It's just a guess, but that's what I'm getting from how they treated Xavier's eventual
You'll need a
acceptance
top-notch
of AI
team to
Natalie.
win this
and
one.
that gels with an
I will
attitude
bring
about
peace
AI
to
that I
this
can't help
universe,
but notice
no
in
matter
Phase
the
5.
cost.
And to be fair, it is not unique to Phase 5, but in Phase 5 it takes on a new meaning. Like sure, Jarvis is maybe the 5th character to speak in any of these movies. Tony has always had an AI, and Tony accidentally made an evil AI and then deliberately made a good one. There's also Griot, the Wakandan AI, and Kevin, the AI that pretends to write all the Marvel movies that I actually write. But those were all created when AI was nothing more than a tech-rail marketing fever dream of motion controls or the metaverse. Now AIs are very real. Some people view them as tools, some as
I was born to change humanity for the better.
Welcome back to a
That
series
time
so
has
fun.
come.
30 seconds before
Even
you attack.
iDubbbz subscribe.
Get ready.
In today's video, iDubbbz is being a complete sociopath and trying to justify ignoring a child marriage victim. He's somehow playing victim again after failing to harass Ethan and his crew members. Anissa is beefing with Ethan's crew members and trying to manipulate them behind the scenes to get them to quit their job. They have responded exposing Anissa. Anissa is having a complete and utter meltdown on Twitter. She's making the Israel-Palestine conflict about herself and somehow relating it to misogyny. Ethan has responded and is laughing at their downfall. People are responding to iDubbbz's new Peace video on Commentary Channel and a bunch of more updates. Subscribe or you gotta smell iDubbbz's breath for 24 hours. Just got over helping out with the child marriage ban. For context, this is iDubbbz's bossing coach Mike and his wife Kate. Kate actually reached out to iDubbbz and Anissa asking for help regarding their bill to end child marriage. And iDubbbz ghosted them. Now iDubbbz responded when he did that.
He messaged me about the child marriage thing, and this was after Grade Class 2, and it was very most heels right after Mike found Cosmic Mike requested that I guarantee on the phone. He was aware of what happened. He knew. Born again!
I am at your service.
That, obviously I have a hard time on things were dropped. But he comes in with his request of, hey, mind being my guarantor on the phone? Meanwhile, he has no problem messaging me that.
By the eye of Agamotto!
We are undefeatable!
Somehow, in any situation ever, iDubbbz is always the victim. He asked me to be a guarantor on a loan. Yeah, but that is completely separate from the child marriage thing. Dude, aren't you like the empathy guy? Apparently no empathy for child marriage survivors. Absolute pathetic worm. You can message them and refuse the loan thing and still respond to the other more important thing. Instead, he's crying here going, what? Right, so then he continues, he says that he was extremely offended.
I was extremely offended when he messaged me requesting that I be his guarantor on a loan. I said, like, in no world would I ever be able to do this. Because I wanted to express, like, very clear boundaries. And I did. And I don't know how long I wasn't done being angry about it, for sure. But he did message me about and I didn't pass it along to him. I looked at it. Was I being like negligent to that relationship? Sure. But
There's
no,
still so much to do.
Don't support child marriage or whatever fucking crazy story.
The Cosmos heals you.
I was angry then, and I was like, you guys are not gonna be
some assistance, please.
Anytime
I feel better already.
Yeah, I'm done with it. But at least with the child marriage thing, like they didn't message me. That was definitely a me thing. Me being like,
At your 32 years older this time, I
By the eye of Agamotto!
So what I'm understanding here is that if I get this hard again, then he's allowed to ignore it, right? I don't know how he took this situation and made it about himself. Like, you gotta get that was your own doing. They don't have to care about that shit. It's like, you hired these people, use their services, you still gotta pay up, regardless of whatever is going on. Also, keep in mind that this guy was a millionaire at one point. Now we all know that he's broke and struggling and stuck in his basement or whatever. But this has gotta be the worst money man I've ever seen. All you have to do is put it in ETFs or something, and you'll be rich for life. Instead, here you are, paying off over this dumb type of shit. Anyways, Anissa finds a way to play victim again, accuses Ivan's old boxing code of acting inappropriately. Anissa, you wouldn't stop hugging me. It was really, really upsetting. I was trying to push him off and he wouldn't. I was embarrassed. It made me feel really embarrassed, and then he wouldn't let me leave. He kept hugging me, and I was trying to push him off, and I cried. Idubs, can you explain why the frick I was crying? Nah, it's fine. So, are you saying this guy like touched you or something? Oh my god.
You can't expect to learn
Why are you coming out about this after all this time? How convenient. I don't think the Jomhas have any credibility left whatsoever. Same though we're backside their closest friend. The woman in the photo is literally a forced child at 12, but Anissa is the real victim because she was hugged. Funny how she never mentioned any of that before talking about him. Also, it doesn't seem too bothered in any of the clips of them together. Guess when you're losing an internet beef, resort to essay allegations. Yeah, she literally asked this guy to be their coach as well, and like they seem pretty friendly and all that. So I don't know if I believe this shit just coming out of
You'll need
nowhere,
a top-notch
dude.
team to win this
Conveniently,
one.
when they shit talk you, you have to come up with these random accusations out of nowhere. It's actually disgusting if I think about it. Can you explain why I was crying? Because you sell your pee for $5 a month on OnlyFans. Moving on to Idubs versus AB. AB is another crew member on the E3 podcast. Basically, Idubs hates him, and AB was literally just defending him.
AB can attest to it, right? So it's mentally very hard. So I
Shut up, AB.
Because I can tell his heart was.
We can clean that up, Zach. I
So,
feel like
by the way, people wonder why I say AB. Like, this is why. Like,
Where there is evil
you're
in this
being used in
universe,
this moment
I
to like
will be there to
invalidate my
balance it.
experience.
Not
at,
what?
Like,
He's so stupid.
running a boxing event.
He's the dumbest person alive.
Yeah, let me tell you about who tried to fucking use me.
30 seconds before you
my
attack.
first
Get
sparring
ready.
day, like, can you pause it for a second? It was so fucking bad. Like, this is after he was
The
talking about
time has
sparring
come
out
to
Ernst.
call on ancient
How
forces to
embarrassed!
aid us in this battle.
You guys were laughing at him
Oh, I
because he
always
got
wanted
beat
to
up and he
learn
was
magic.
crying.
Typical
So what do I
Moscow
say?
trick.
So I say, hey, I could have
The
took on Alex. Oh,
spells
I
I
never
have
cried.
mastered
No,
are
I'm
not
saying
for
my
novices.
first sparring day was so
They are
fucking
fueled
bad.
by
My coach
pure
thought I would
pain.
never come back to the fucking
want
gym.
your-
Yeah. You know what that
The
is?
battle
Ian? That's
starts
me
in
defending
5,
you, fucking
4,
dumbass.
Yeah, no,
3,
it is.
2,
Idubs is just
1.
taking every single thing
Ready
as
to
an
capture
insult.
the
It's
available
actually
area
sad.
and
He thinks
extract
that
some
the
goodies?
entire world
Let's
is just
go.
against him, and the one guy actually trying to defend him, he thinks that he's hostile as well. But anyways, then we get some insane news. Turns out Anissa was actually manipulating
better already.
I require some aid. Basically guilt tripping him, saying that he should quit E3 and he should lose his account and holding a bunch of things over his head. Basically gaslighting him, saying that Ethan is a racist, or you're working for a racist, you better quit your job or you're a bad person. He turned all his friends against him as well.
The other
And she
team is
was just
extracting
told
those
this beyond
resources.
belief.
They had some sort of weight on me, and I'm disarmed them. I'd rather lose my job than be talked down to like some sort of power. They was down upon by some
It's not my business, right? What you say privately in your free time.
It was never me bringing up fucking shit. It was me just trying to navigate my wife being in this fucking event, and I fucking have not been able to sleep. I have not been able. I've stopped looking at apartments. Our lease is up next month. I canceled the fucking sale of our Michigan house because I don't know what the price is going to be. I took out a loan to fucking pay all my bills because this fucking girl thinks she has a right to fucking play games with me, Lena, and she's fucking down the job. You're dead, son. Hypocrisy might fucking kill me. They don't care about my grandma, as I said. They don't care about my sister. What did you do when I opened up to you? You ran your mouth to everyone, allowed every one of your stupid fucking friends to fucking threaten me. You allowed Denim to threaten
Cosmos heals
me. You fucking allowed, when she insinuated that she knew something. How the fuck would she know anything? I've never spoken a word to Denim. I've never exchanged a DM with Denim.
So you're telling me Anissa was going around telling all her friends in private this stuff that you shared with her in order to use the moon. Get ready to find another available area. Yeah, this is
They're halfway to victory. Don't let them get more resources.
Nutjob does this shit.
I completely empathize with the situation you guys are in. You know, because you're right in the middle of something and you're being judged on both sides, and it's really hard to know. We all want to do the right thing, and it's really hard to know what's the right thing.
Great job.
We've
You're
been
loading
judged
up
by
on
both sides, but
resources.
only you and Ela have treated us like
Hold
give us any
to the
sort
next
of
available area.
decency. I was gonna say, go
The
try
other
and
team
tell
is
another minority
extracting those resources.
that they're a pussy for keeping their job that provides for their family. Go try it. Even if you believe your interpretation of it, let's say that's
Great job. You're loading up on resources.
provide for my family.
You've got competition.
I'm fine.
Clear the enemies to extract more
Put yourself
resources.
in the shoes of telling another
We
minority
must
that,
fight
like,
another
or telling someone, or telling a black man that you are a coward for providing with your for your family by dealing with racism. Again, it's not true, obviously, but I mean, even their fucking premise is so fucking. It makes no sense. Or they're gonna talk shit about you, and you can't respond. You can't respond to it. You just gotta fucking take it. So I don't know what that is.
Sounds like
Your team is
some type of
ready to rumble,
extortion.
baby.
Sure.
And I'm not stupid. I know why. The Cosmos heals. Because it goes against their
I unleash the Vishanti's
and just say, they want you alone. They want us all to quit.
Yep, exactly. They just want you guys fired so they can continue getting jabs at Ethan and Ela. I had no idea that actually went this deep. This level of manipulation from Anissa. So this AV guy was like sharing stuff to Anissa maybe privately, maybe he was like ranting about Ethan or something. You know, general stuff, you know, sometimes you complain about your boss or whatever. It's not really mean-spirited, it's just sort of natural stuff, you know, sometimes you get overwhelmed, whatever. And then Anissa holds that over his head like he's
Resources are nearly tapped out here, too. Sorry.
Unbelievable. As people correctly predicted, he is a mastermind manipulator. Moving on to Anissa versus Ethan's crew member, Dahlia.
Nothing creeps me out more than the new hire gallery. Talking so confidently about me, my husband, our financial situation. You don't know it. You're wrong on everything. Cringe. Okay. Also, Tom's
The moon haunts you.
Yeah, you're down. That's food. If you think you can just say something like this about a random person that you actually don't know anything about because you cannot do any research in your life, then just shut the f up and just live in Edmonton peacefully, bake your little donut every single day, feed your little baby Ian. He's about to eat solids. I'm so happy for him. Constantly talking about my husband or our financial situation.
Great job.
You are
loading up on resources.
Basement. With not a single light around. With not a single plug around you. Because you don't have anything around you.
In their new video, Ian starts it off by being like, yeah, ignore the back. And it's just like a bunch of planks of wood.
I'm working on my setup. I'm like, yeah, I can see that. I can see you're trying to do something there, but I don't know what that is. And we all know that you're selling your house. We all know about your financial situation.
Because they talk about it.
Against our will. You're the one who's like posting.
I mean, that's true. All the info we have is from them sharing it. Like we would not know any of this. You decided to put it online. Oh, we're broke. We're struggling financially. We're stuck in business. People are going to comment on
This is real firepower.
Like you can't win against Ethan, so you go after
Born again.
Get them to quit or something. Such a pathetic tactic. Okay, moving on to Anissa's Twitter meltdown. Shut this person from mail clearing. Why is this Steve Lavester making fun of Anissa doing sex work?
You gotta leave. You guys are all complicit, all this shit. to her getting back on OnlyFans, I mean,
The
God
other
bless her,
team
but
is
like, I'm like, oh, fuck,
extracting
like,
those
this
resources.
situation might be getting bad now. Like,
Eerily quiet here.
I don't know. It's
Unnaturally
just,
so.
wait, just to clarify, they told.
yo, that's fucked up.
Yeah, that was like the tamest criticism I've ever seen in my entire life. That wasn't even criticizing. He's just like, oh yeah, you had to go back on OnlyFans. That's kind of embarrassing. And apparently this is what he's just crashing out over. He can't even commit to saying it. He has to giggle and hide his face to cope with the guilt of the path he's chosen. I am actually giggling at laughing at an OnlyFans girl. The path of a degen OF girl who happens to be an extremely mean-spirited and nasty person as well. Apparently, that's a good path to go down. Imagine how powerful you are that this man and his crew consistently dedicate a segment of their show to talk nonsense about you. They read my clips live, creepy Golly is very upset she's creepy, Tom Ward is every he goes after them individually. I don't think you watch from a video or like a mean girl in high school and never go. I love that he pressured AB, Lena, and Olivia to leave the show because Nathan is slipping mud after he backstabbed for his he's not. But now you gleefully work with a website whose owner is the literal largest donor to APAC. The hypocrisy is too much. Talking about OnlyFans here. She continues to crash out. Someone just leaked DMs to me showing that Ian's bitter ex-boxing coach and wife were hate watching the Nazi duo Kino Casino. Can we stop with this Nazi shit? Like, anyone you disagree with is not a Nazi. What the heck is this?